Welcome to the show. I'm Doug Johnson, and this is The Business of Life. During every show, we try to bring to you a local personality who has some secret strategies for success to share with us. Today's guest is Marquette Williams, who was brought up in Twinsburg, left town for quite a number of years, and now is back with us. He is a film producer and writer. He has been many other things, and I'll let him talk about that. But Marquette and I have known one another for years, and it's just great to be able to reconnect and to talk about life. So, Marquette, thank you so much
thanks for having me.
being here today. And first off, we know basically what we do. You have some exciting projects going on that we'll talk about down the road. But first, why don't you give us a little bit of your backstory?
It's really weird when a director has to talk about themselves. So I always find that to be kind of interesting.
Well, that's why we're here, to make your life difficult.
Right. So by trade, I'm a writer-director. I would say I started writing really young. I probably wrote my first play when I was like 9 or 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I tell people, I was an artist first, and then you wake up one day and you're good at sports. So I always find it ironic because people often ask me like, "Oh, when did you start doing the art? When did you stop doing sports?" And I was like, "Well, actually, I was always doing the art. It was the sports that was new." So I would say I started writing really young, and then drawing. So it was like I would write these little comic books, then I would draw all the characters. So I guess early on I was doing filmmaking or building the visualization of being a filmmaker, right? And my mother was a single mom. She was a very young mom. And so I think also too, I quickly learned that it wasn't the cool stuff to do, right? That it was something I would do in the privacy of my home. It was very private to me. I hadn't really reached the stage. Most artists start creating years before they share it with other people, right? It is a weird personal thing. We create because we have an internal urge to create. There's breathing, there's procreation, and then there's art. For most artists, it's kind of in that order, right? In terms of instincts, right? So instinctually, I want to make things all the time, all kind of things. But then I was also in an urban area. At the time we were living off Kinsman, and it just was not cool to write poetry. It was not cool to play the flute, right? So I think in a lot of ways, the peer pressure of the environment made me keep it very private. So it wasn't probably till, I would say in 9th or 10th grade, I had an English teacher who made a comment about my writing. And, school, because of its structure, it includes judgment, right? Grades are judgment. And the teacher is judging the student. I've always had a difficulty with that as a person, as an adult, because I feel like people misjudge people because judgment is so external. And when an adult is judging a child, they're really looking at a child's actions and weighing them based upon an adult's actions, right? So I always had a love for the English language, a love for reading in a way, a love for make-believe, a love for stories and storytelling. The structure part of it, grammar, spelling, when you're young, you think that's writing. And so it makes you hesitant to write. It makes you hesitant to share writing. So while other students were really enthralled in learning where a period went, or where a semicolon went, or where a comma goes, or how to spell a word, I was really enthralled with story structure and telling a story. As a kid, you don't know that's what you're attracted to, that you're attracted to the response of a story, right? So Miss McDonald began to talk to me about, you have a gift for writing. And I was like, man, wow, no one's ever said this to me. And then by this time, my mom had remarried and my father was a writer. So I got to see someone make a living as an artist. So I think that's very important that you witness it first, right? It's kind of like playing ball. Like the first time you see somebody play ball, then you go home and practice how to play ball. So that let me know that like whatever I was dreaming about inside was actually tangible in a way, but I was still afraid to share it. So like most people who are into the arts, you kind of start touching things, right? I'm gonna touch this, see what it's like, touch this, see what it's like. So it was drawing, and then it was, sculpting, then it was poetry, it was pastels, I was testing out things. But I knew I liked art. But at the same time, I started getting really good at sports. And there's an assumption, I think, for a lot of people that because you're good at something, you like it more than something else. I won't say I didn't like sports. I'll say that it never had a great value in my family structure. So therefore, it never had a great value to me. My mother wasn't at home saying, oh, baby, I need you to go to the NFL, or, oh, I need you to go to the Olympics and track, or, oh, we went to basketball camp, not because she wanted me to go to the NBA. She wanted me to understand teamwork, and she wanted me to understand how to make friends who were going in the same direction as I was going, not the sport. It wasn't until much later that she became a sports mom. My baby brother, probably had the greatest sports mom. I had the artistic teacher mom, where she viewed sports in a lot of ways as people are using you. And obviously, African-American male, you want to be careful with usury, because you can come out on the end with nothing. And everyone else has profited off of you, be it ticket sales, be it winning games, whatever it is that they are getting from you, from the use of your body. Make sure that you are getting something out of it that's tangible. To her, education was tangible, right? So sports was a vehicle to get an education. That's how it was really viewed in my home. That's how it was expressed to me. So a lot of times when people come up, even now, and they'll bring up a football game. And they're like, oh man, you had like 200 yards in a football game and they sat you in the third quarter. I don't remember that at all. I don't remember a game. I don't remember a touchdown. I don't remember a track meet. I don't remember any of that. I don't remember breaking a record nor setting a record. If there is one I remember, it's from 8th grade, and it's the long jump. And it's not that I remember the record. I remember that the feeling of expectation, of adult expectation, right? And so I'm doing a long jump. And, I'm like 13 or 14 years old, man, but I'm fouling. My mother will laugh when you tell her this story. So I'm fouling, and I'm on my third jump, and I'm pouting. I'm in the back, walking in a circle, my hands on my hips, pouting. And my mother comes out the stands, which she rarely does. And she's not one of those type of sports moms. And she comes to the sideline and she calls me over. Oh, I'm about to make me cry, Doc. And she says, I didn't take off work to come all the way down here to see you pout in front of all these people. They have come here to see you do something that only you can do. And she walked and she stood at the end of the long jump pit. And I broke the school record. And that record stood until John Carter's son broke it. So that shows you the exchange from myself to my friend's son and the importance of that. So the things that I remember about sports are not the actual accolades. I remember the camaraderie, right? I remember cutting all my teammates' hair, right? So it was one thing to cut all the black guys' hair. It was another thing to cut the white guys' hair, right? So to see race be transcended and to know that we did that. What you see in Twinsburg today happened in like 1990. When I was a junior, we set out to really change. I don't know if we knew it was different because we knew that the white kids didn't come to the Hill, and the kids from the Hill didn't go down to Aurora Shores. Like, we knew there were these weird unwritten rules that we were told going into high school. But there was a point where, Coach Currents, he came and he said, I want to start an all-black backfield. And this never happened in Twinsburg before, so there's going to be some problems. He said, we got to win. You got to win. Change is great when you win. And so it started there. I think Coach Pacey understood the same thing. Mm-hmm. That, yeah, these sports are great, but long term, we want to make men that bond together, men that know how to transcend race and class. And so, again, that's how I was raised. So the skill I had, artistic skill, was cutting hair. So you're sitting there, and you got all your teammates over, and you're giving them haircuts, right? So flash forward 30 years, and we're still friends. Brad Ryzicki's still my point guard, right? So I think that Twinsburg, in its own unique way, was creating a memory that I look back upon, and it's very, very positive. It was almost like a Black Mayberry, where you had black folks that owned homes, you had black folks who had a moral compass, a neighborhood, a community that gave you a sense of pride.
Well, and Mark,
not to digress and be all over.
Well, no, but what I'm seeing here is you moved to California at some point. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years ago, and you and I talked about this, you moved back for your family. Mm-hmm. And what I'm seeing from this discussion is more than your family, I think. It's a whole structure, a whole coming back to what you think is right.
Oh, yeah.
What makes you feel good.
Completely.
And what's important to you, which is family and friends. And obviously, if those kids whose hair you cut 30 years ago are still your friends, how often does that happen today?
It's weird. I see George Brandon every week. Mm-hmm. Right. I see, my teammates from multiple sports at least once a month. It doesn't happen a lot. People ask me about California, and so it's a weird thing. I would say that California showed me something that I don't know I ever thought was possible, which was to be invisible in the world.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
A black male, especially one that's 6'4", 250, 260, 19-inch neck. At the time, I'm bench pressing maybe 500 pounds. I'm a very large person at the time. I'd never been through life unseen, be it good or bad, right? Most people, when they hear this, they're going to assume I'm talking about the negative parts too. It's both, right? Yeah, in a department store being followed by some weird security guy. Yeah, I'm tired of that. Opposite side of it. Every time you see me, it's, hey man, join the basketball team, come play ball with us. It's a positive thing. They're inviting me to something.
Right.
But I'm like, man, do I have to? Right? Get to California and you don't have to. Because there's so many people. There's so many weird, different types, artsy weirdos going around that black or white is like way low on the social totem pole. Uh-huh. So in one sense, I had a type of freedom that I wanted to share with everyone, right? So part of coming back was to show you this freedom that does exist. Like my mother would say, not every black person's your friend and not every white person's your enemy. I didn't really understand that until I went to California. I didn't really understand this greater picture of humanity. We're people are people. So having that experience for a very long time, coming back here, part of it was to say, hey, I'm going to show you something that maybe you've never seen before. Freedom, moments that you can have and share with people that are not defined per se on your race, your gender, your religious background. I got friends that are 70 years old. I got friends that are 19. I'm 50. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's that. And then there is a part of it that I call everyone in California was tan. So in the beginning, you go there as a young person to be invisible, right? To actually live a life as an artist without being judged, without being predisposed to those things, because they weigh heavy on you. Then you get older and you have your children. And your children are coming home and they're very LA children, right? My kids eat sushi, my kids know multiple languages, my kids have seen all these things. They have friends from all over the world. It's amazing, right? It's like, wow. But then, you realize your kids don't understand the real world. They understand Los Angeles, they understand New York. They don't understand the middle. My daughter, who plays volleyball, is having a tournament out of town, and I invite some of my family members to this tournament. Because I live in California, so I don't get to see them a lot. We go to the tournament, and I take my kids later to visit some of their family members, and I realize my kids have never seen poverty. They don't understand this is who we are. We're working class black folks. Don't let California fool you. Don't let living in the hills fool you. Don't let these things fool you. This is where we come from. This is who we are. It doesn't matter where we've gone to. We are working class people, therefore we are expected to do 110% in everything you do. No one's going to take your complaints. No one's going to care. They had a false sense of entitlement, a false sense of culture. So I brought them home so they could see this is who we are.
Well, and to jump in here, what you're doing now, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here, the big project that you're working on, tell us about that, because what I'm seeing is you're taking everything that you learned and felt in California and before, I mean, even when you were in school here, and you're bringing that back to Cleveland to do good for numerous people.
Yes.
So tell us briefly, because the clock's ticking
Yeah, I know, I got our clock running.
What you're doing now and what your big project is and what you're trying to do with that project.
So again, we come from an education background. My mother's a teacher. So we really got into synthesizing the trades as a filmmaker into workforce development. That turned into, we're going to build the studio project. With the price of wood going up every month at 1%, the project is ballooned to a $60 million project. We have raised roughly $35 million. We're closing in on another $5 to $10 million, and we're slowly working our way to having our full capital stack. We have some land. We've got about 25 acres situated off of Lake Erie. We are in the opportunity zone, and we've begun to really marry opportunity zone investment, the tax incentive, and workforce development, right? Because we can teach Clevelanders trades in the below the line in terms of film industry labor, but we also have to find a way for them to be employed, right? I think that a lot of onus gets put on the film commission. I don't think that's fair. I think it's up to filmmakers to create the environment by which the film commission can sell and leverage, which is really infrastructure. So Cinema City is a mixed-use development that is anchored by a soundstage, and it's a great project. Right now we are, in one sense, trying to figure out the funding for that, and at the same time we're training people. So over the past 18 months, I think we've trained almost 30-something people to work in the industry in some form or capacity, be it camera, be it electrical, be it grip, be it whatever it may be. We're constantly trying to teach people, particularly people who are working class folks, minorities, people who haven't always had the academic background to go to college, people who haven't always had access to jobs. We kind of look at that market and say, okay, this is our demographic. We're going to train you at least one vocational skill. If I teach you one thing to feed your family, I've done my job.
Well, and what you're doing really is presenting opportunity. And, conversation that we've had talking about been there, done that. you as a teacher can't really teach something that you've quote unquote learned by the book. You actually had to have done it. And so just really quickly, there's kind of a conundrum in my mind because you're a writer and a producer and a director. So you've done all those things that you're training. Your films have been all over the spectrum, and there are a number of them, and
Right.
award-winning and so on and so forth.
Right.
One of them is Fatherhood 100, and one of your recent ones is a murder film.
Murder is Innocence, yeah.
And how do you reconcile the two from fatherhood to murder and still be sane? I mean, you're, you know.
It's weird. So obviously I'm a documentary filmmaker, and so I am completely fascinated with the human condition.
Okay.
I am a complete observer of the human condition. How does it translate to Samuel Goldwyn coming in and saying, we want you to make this murder mystery that's about a femme fatale, right? Number one, you make the documentaries in hopes that you get a studio film, right? So some studio will hire you to make this project. The difficulty is it's a studio project, so I literally have very little control. I'm kind of hired gun, do what they want. And so my goal was to write something that took place in Twinsburg. So that was the first thing. The second thing is it has a social commentary to it. It is a thriller. It is about a woman who they believe has manipulated people into committing crimes. So I wanted to speak about a few different things in the piece. The first thing I spoke about was the sides of a woman, right? The dynamic of being a woman and being beautiful, and what do you do when you are objectified? So the story is about a woman who is objectified, and all these men want to control her beauty, right? Having grown up with a really pretty mother, I saw the balancing of feminist power versus masculine manipulation. So the story still has a social commentary, just like Fatherhood 101. Almost everything I make is still going to have some form of social commentary. I don't know if I can make art without that. That is what drives me as an artist. So even when you're making a narrative make-believe piece that seems like it's not, that's just the title. The story itself really does get into when the pretty girl goes to college, how does she monetize intellect and beauty? When the girl who is stuck as a waitress but still beautiful, how does she monetize that? Right? Because that's what people want. And it's a fleeting thing. It leaves over time. So the story really gets into the shelf life of beauty and how this young lady uses that beauty to elevate herself out of poverty without compromising her body. And I think that's what young women today are battling with, right? Stripper, doctor, which is the better goal? They both make $250 a year. Which is the better goal? So that's really what the story is about, right?
So what I'm seeing is all of your experiences have come together really quickly. Let's talk about, you've been very successful. You are very successful. 3 strategies for success that we can all take and use. And you've talked with me about patience being a superpower. So the second one really is passion and perseverance. So really quickly, how does that all tie together with your success, and how can we use it to be successful?
I think that there's a timeline that people tell you success should come within, and then there's a timeline of like the universe. I think patience allows you to really bridge the two. I often think that the anxiety of success is based on a timeline that is artificial. Like I've had people call me and say, oh, the studio project's taking so long. And I'm like, well, as a black land developer, there's not one in the city. So that's taken over 100 years. They've been trying to build studios here for over 30 years. So it's okay if mine takes 2-3 years. It's comparable. Patience allows you to have the strength to sit and see. Passion, that's what people tap into. I can sell you ice. If I'm passionate about the ice, you could be an Eskimo, right? Because people invest in people. People connect with you and your passion and purpose, right? What was the third one?
Perseverance. And we have just about 45
All right,
minutes.
perseverance comes from sports.
Okay.
You got to get back up after you've been knocked down. You're going to get knocked down. But the story of success is really the story of failure and learning. I fail a lot. I'm constantly failing. If you don't fail, you won't know what it is to succeed. You won't even know what success is if you haven't failed.
You know, Marquette, I just love to leave with that statement because that makes a huge statement for all of us in our daily lives to, if we fail and we need to fail to get that experience, get back up. Marquette, it has been a pleasure getting back with you, man.
It's good to see you. Last analogy.
Okay.
I use this all the time. Let's say that Kobe Bryant is the greatest basketball scorer ever. Not player, scorer. He maybe shot 42, 45%. For his career, he's in the Hall of Fame. That's 4 out of 10. Failure is expected. 6 out of the 10 times, he failed. He's in the Hall of Fame for 4 out of 10. Babe Ruth's no different. I can go through every great athlete you can think of. They didn't even hit 50%, and they're the greatest of their era. So failure is a huge part of success.
There you go. Failure is a huge part of success. And folks, you heard it here.
Thank you.
Mark,
Appreciate
thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you for having me. This is great. Great seeing you again.
Same here.